In the heart of Australia's criminal underworld, a legend was born, lived and died, in a moment that would forever change the landscape of outlaw motorcycle clubs. Nick Martin wasn't just a man, he was a phenomenon. Picture a world where a struggling motorcycle club transforms from a local joke to a national powerhouse in the blink of an eye. From scattered members to a formidable force of over 400 strong, with 18 clubhouses spread across the continent. A rise so meteoric it defied belief. From a reckless teenager known to local law enforcement to the most feared motorcycle club leader in Australia, Martin's journey reads like a script too incredible to be true. Imagine a life measured in precise, brutal statistics. A single shot fired from 335 meters away.
This was a professional sniper taking a shot from 335 metres. That has never happened in Australia before. That's why this particular bikie death will go down in history for its sheer audacity.
A bounty of $150,000 that would seal a titan's fate. 200 practice shots by an assassin. A moment of execution witnessed by 2,000 unsuspecting spectators. This is more than a story of a man. It's a tale of power, betrayal, and the razor-thin line between brotherhood and war. A narrative that unfolded on a December night at the Perth Motorplex, where a lifetime of conquests would end in a single calculated moment.
Good evening. The extraordinary details of a bikie's public execution at Perth Motorplex have been revealed for the first time. A court was told a former soldier was paid thousands to plan and carry out the murder of Rebels boss Nick Martin.
Who was Nick Martin? A family man or a ruthless club leader? A charming public figure or a feared commander? The truth lies in the shadows between these worlds. Some stories are whispered. This one demands to be screamed. Prepare to unravel the myth of Nick Martin, where loyalty is bought in blood and betrayal is the ultimate currency. Nick Martin burst into existence in 1969, a force of nature from the start.
Before all that, Nick Martin had actually been born in the UK in 1969 to father Sid and mother Rhoda. And according to his mother, was a huge baby.
His fists, remarked upon by the delivering doctor, whispered of a destiny beyond ordinary boundaries. A prophetic beginning for a man who would become a legend.
The doctor who delivered him even commented on how big his fists were in the delivery room.
Australia welcomed him at 6 months old, a continent as wild and untamed as the boy would become. The Martin family planted roots, unknowingly nurturing a seed that would grow into something extraordinary.
He emigrated with his family at 6 months, went back to the UK briefly, but returned as a kid to Australia, going on to cause mayhem on the rugby field and in the classroom.
Rebellion coursed through his veins like an unstoppable current.
At 17, he left school, he left home and began work as a bouncer.
By 18, Martin wasn't just another troublemaker. He was a statement. Reckless driving.
The first time we ever knew that Nicholas Thomas Martin even existed was courtesy of a 28 October 1988 news story in the West Australian newspaper on page 26, where we learnt that he had been busted driving like a maniac at the age of 18. He was a sheet metal worker back then, and he was fined $2,000 in the district court.
Nightclub altercations.
The next time we heard him, he'd beaten the crap out of some people at a nightclub called Aqua in Northbridge, where he and a few others were fined $2,000 for assault, occasioning bodily harm.
Each incident is a brushstroke in a portrait of defiance. Local law enforcement knew his name, muttered it with a mix of frustration and grudging respect.
Now, he was also convicted for assault in 1992 and 1993. So 1988, dangerous driving. 1992-93, assaults. 1996, assaults at a nightclub. And he just went from strength to strength.
The Rebels Motorcycle Club existed as a punchline before Martin. A struggling brotherhood, more joke than threat. Fall asleep near their clubhouse? Locals would laugh, and you might wake up with an unearned patch. Membership was a revolving door, initiation casual at best.
A joke of a club, there was a running joke that if you fell asleep near a Rebels clubhouse, you'd wake up with a patch on your back. Such was the low level of expectations for you to get into the club. You didn't have to have performed major crimes like you'd need to do with the club deros. You could get away with a nomination period of under 12 months compared to 18 months or sometimes even 2 years with some of the older gangs.
But Martin saw potential where others saw weakness. In 2005, he joined as a nominee.
And in 2005, he joined the Rebels as a nominee.
3 years later, he became the Western Australian chapter's president, a meteoric rise that defied all expectations.
By 2008, he was their state leader.
Under his leadership, the Rebels transformed from a ragtag group to a national powerhouse. Numbers told the story of his success. Over 400 members, 18 clubhouses nationwide, from obscurity to dominance in just a few short years. Martin wasn't just leading a motorcycle club. He was building an empire. A paradox walked among them.
He was a magnet for new members. They loved the fact that they could be hanging out with Nick, and the club grew and grew and grew. They had something like 18 clubhouses at one stage. 400 or 500 members. This was when he wore that Rebel Army T-shirt.
He wasn't joking.
He actually had a battalion behind him.
To reporters, he was charming. At home, a teddy bear.
2005 marked another sliding doors moment for Nick Martin. He met his match, or what his father would later call his perfect match, in a lady called Amanda Shoppy. The courtship between the pair lasted for years and didn't really align with Martin's growing public persona. The hulking, brooding bikie boss in public, the man who brought Nando's and romantic DVDs to his girl by night. The other women in his life were his daughter Tia, his sister Renee, his mother Rhoda, all describing him variously as a teddy bear, a protector, a rock, their special boy.
On the streets, an unbreakable commander who could silence a room with a single glance. Charisma and physical intimidation danced in perfect harmony.
But the man, the rebel, was a fighter, not a lover, and was wanted or hunted by police and rivals for years.
Who was the real Nick Martin? The family man, the outlaw leader, or something more complex? Hey brothers, tired of YouTube's BS and censorship? It's time to break free. That's why I've shifted gears to Patreon, where I can bring you the raw, uncensored content you crave. Join my Patreon crew and get an insane package deal. Exclusive early access to all videos, days before YouTube, 100% ad-free viewing experience. Uncensored, no-holds-barred community discussions, double the content, 2 killer videos every single week. VIP access, direct interaction with yours truly, inside scoop, exclusive biker world updates you won't find anywhere else. Ready to join the elite? Hit that Patreon link now. Your support doesn't just keep us rolling, it fuels a revolution of uncensored, unrestricted content. Join now and unlock a world of exclusive benefits. Death arrived unexpectedly. The Perth Motorplex blazed with excitement. Packed with roaring nitro engines and over 2,000 spectators in a carnival of speed. Nick Martin sat among them, surrounded by family, wife Amanda, stepdaughter Stacy, Stacy's partner Ricky Chapman, in a moment of perfect calm.
December the 12th, 2020, a Saturday evening in the twilight, Martin, his wife Amanda, her daughter Stacy and her partner Ricky Chapman were among friends at one of their favourite places, the Drags at Kwinana Motorplex.
A moment suspended. The bullet travelled precisely across 335 meters to pierce Martin's barrel-like torso with surgical calculation.
At just after 8:30 p.m, with around 2,000 people in attendance, including a 5-year-old sat on his stepdaughter's knee, Nick Martin was shot once in the left side of his barrel chest. He knew immediately what had happened, even if those around him struggled to comprehend.
Chaos erupted. First aid and desperate medical intervention revealed the brutal truth that some wounds transcend human capability to heal.
First aid was attempted, CPR was performed, but Martin was dead before he had even left that familiar spot. Ricky Chapman had also been struck by the same bullet which had lodged in his arm. He survived, but chaos ensued.
This was more than a murder, a message written in blood, a statement carved into the night with violent intent.
The shooting sparked an unprecedented response from both police and politicians. The cops were trying to find a killer, while also trying to avoid an all-out OMCG war across Perth.
The law enforcement began their investigations and even offered a big fat check regarding any information about the shooting.
Today, our government is announcing a reward of up to $1 million for information about that killing on the weekend.
And Nick Martin was later laid to rest. His burial was just bizarre.
Verity James, a lovey from Auntie, giving the rebel salute at the end of Nick Martin's funeral. You just could not make that up.
Let's raise our fists one more time.
The fact that she's on one leg because she's done something to an ankle or lower leg, so she's hobbling along, holding Nick Martin's father's hand while he walks in front of a coffin covered in $100 bills with a photo of his son. The fact that she then calls up these various rebels leaders from all over the country, it's just. Bizarre is one word. It's more than that. It is absolutely strange. Stranger things I have not seen, I don't think.
The assassin emerged.
But it wasn't until March that there was a breakthrough when police raided a southern suburbs home and arrested and charged a 35-year-old man. Because of fears for his safety, a wide-ranging suppression order was made on his identity, and all of his court appearances were closed to the public.
A former soldier turned phantom, meticulously prepared with camouflage gear and a high-powered rifle, crawled through the venue fence.
Now the man who fired the fatal shot has admitted his guilt. While WA police have welcomed the shooter's guilty pleas, they've warned that their investigations are continuing.
200 practice shots had guaranteed this moment of perfect, devastating execution would find its mark. Witnesses watched. The scene transformed from celebration to crime in milliseconds, leaving behind a silence that spoke of impending darkness. Who could orchestrate such a precise assassination that would send tremors through the entire motorcycle club underworld?
We want to track down each and every person that was involved in the public execution of Nick Martin, and we won't stop until that is done.
David Pye was a name that emerged from the investigations. A former rebel turned Comanchero. He carried a grudge etched deeper than any tattoo on his weathered skin.
David James Pye was a close mate of Martin's and a member of the Rebels bikie gang with him. You want to know something funny?
What?
He's actually a butcher. I put the emphasis on was a mate because he's just been charged with the murder of Nick Martin, who, as we know, used to be the head of the WA chapter of that club.
The night swallowed Martin's blood, but the story, brutal and complex, was just beginning to unfold with merciless intensity. Betrayal cuts deepest among brothers. The motorcycle club world operates on a knife's edge. Loyalty is currency, respect, a fragile construct built on violence and unspoken codes. Nick Martin understood this language better than most. David Pye, the baker, once Martin's closest ally, now his potential executioner.
The cops aren't saying Pye pulled the trigger. That was done by a former soldier we all refer to as an adrenaline junkie, who admitted he'd done it a while ago.
Their falling out wasn't just a disagreement. It was a war of ideology, of territory, of survival. Martin's own body bore the testament, a tattoo of Pye's name in crosshairs, permanently etched on his back.
he and Martin had such a falling out that Martin had a tattoo of Pye's name in crosshairs on his back as a reminder of what was on his to-do list.
The sniper wasn't a random hitman.
There'd been rumours going around for months that the former soldier, who we'll call Rambo, met Pye after Pye had his falling out with the Martins.
A former Shadows of Hope vigilante with global conflict experience.
The rumour was Rambo had developed a meth habit after returning to WA following a stint overseas as a mercenary with international vigilante operation Shadows of Hope.
His skills honed in war zones now turned into a precise instrument of vengeance. Price tag, $150,000. Cold, calculated. A life reduced to a financial transaction.
But paying someone to kill someone, as the cops allege Pye did, is enough for you to be charged with murder yourself. I actually didn't know that.
Motorcycle clubs aren't families, they're ecosystems of power. The rebels, once a joke, had become a dominant force under Martin's leadership. But dominance invites challengers, and challengers play for keeps. Internal power struggles are often deadlier than external conflicts. Martin's leadership style, brute force mixed with charisma, left him vulnerable. Each ally could be a potential betrayer. The world watched as an empire began to crumble. Justice moves slowly, but it moves with an inexorable momentum that would ultimately unravel the complex web of violence and conspiracy surrounding David Pye. A $150,000 payment and another $100,000 promised. The cold, calculated price of a life negotiated with the clinical precision of a corporate merger. Killers make mistakes. The sniper's first critical error involved replacing the rifle's barrel at a licensed gunsmith, leaving behind a trail of forensic evidence.
He took his rifle to a gunsmith to have the barrel swapped. That gunsmith kept that barrel, and when police eventually came calling a month later, he still had it and handed it to them.
CCTV footage, financial records, and witness statements began assembling themselves into a damning mosaic of criminal intent.
Which added to CCTV from the motorplex showing him there, fingerprints on bundles of cash, and a shoe print from the sniper's nest which matched the shooter's trainers.
Prosecutors prepared. They painted a chilling picture of military-level preparation. 200 practice shots and meticulous drone reconnaissance converging into a perfect strike. The assassination of Nick Martin revealed itself as a carefully orchestrated operation that extended far beyond a simple act of violence.
The Supreme Court was told the crime was meticulously planned, with the shooter spending months researching Martin, following him and scoping out the motorplex.
The sniper wavered. Cooperation became his only lifeline, offering testimony against Pye in exchange for a potentially reduced sentence of legal mercy. But in the unforgiving world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, becoming a rat was tantamount to signing one's own death warrant. Protective custody beckoned. Martin's family watched the proceedings with a grief that burned, with an anger both profound and unyielding. A 20-year sentence instead of life felt like a hollow victory against the magnitude of their devastating loss.
Justice Stephen Hall said there was no doubt the shooting was a contract killing with no motive other than to receive payment. However, he said the shooter's offer to testify against David Pye fell into the exceptional category, and therefore a finite sentence of 20 years and not a life jail term should be imposed.
The landscape shifted. Unprecedented law enforcement crackdowns and new legislation targeting biker clubs transformed Western Australia's criminal ecosystem forever.
The murder in December last year led to a huge police crackdown on bikie gangs. $1 million reward was offered, and there were raids across the metropolitan area.
One man's death became the unexpected catalyst for systemic change, revealing the fragile nature of power and criminal networks. Martin's legacy endured. He lived as a titan of the motorcycle world and died as a target, leaving behind a story of brutal transformation. A cautionary tale etched in blood, documenting power's ultimate unforgiving fragility. The story doesn't end with a bullet. Nick Martin's legacy ripples through Australia's criminal landscape like a stone cast into still water. His death marked more than the fall of a motorcycle club leader. It became a watershed moment for outlaw motorcycle culture. Amanda Martin lives with grief, both public and intensely personal. Her husband, once invincible, is reduced to a memory. Tia, daughter, carries the weight of that December night, watching a patriarch fall in a spectacle of violence that would consume national headlines.
My dad was a great man that was taken by a bunch of cowards. That's all they are, cowards.
It's destroyed our family. We're all still grieving. We've been grieving for a year.
The rebels' MC, Martin's carefully constructed empire, began to fragment immediately after his death. Members defected. Rival clubs sensed weakness. The once impenetrable Brotherhood started to crack, revealing structural vulnerabilities that Martin had managed to suppress through sheer force of personality. Law enforcement celebrated a Pyrrhic victory. New legislation targeted motorcycle clubs with unprecedented aggression. Raids became more frequent. Arrests are more strategic.
The Pollies decided enough was enough and greenlit a wave of new laws to try and eliminate bikies from WA altogether.
But the underlying culture of violence remained unchanged. David Pye's legal battles continued, promising to expose deeper machinations within the outlaw world. Each court appearance is a reminder of the thin line between loyalty and betrayal. The sniper, now living in permanent protective custody, became a ghost. A cautionary tale of how even the most calculated plans can unravel. $150,000 bought him not freedom, but a lifetime of looking over his shoulder. Martin's murder represented more than a personal vendetta. It symbolized a seismic shift in Australian criminal dynamics. Gone were the days of territorial fistfights and backroom negotiations. Military precision had entered the criminal playbook. Who remembers the titans after they fall? Nick Martin's story whispers a brutal truth. In a world of shifting loyalties, power is never permanent. Empires rise, empires fall, and sometimes the most dangerous enemy lives within the very brotherhood you've built. The motorcycle club landscape would never be the same. One man's life, one fatal shot.
And more than 3 years on, the echoes of that shot are still being felt and heard.